Attorney Lenore. I've been married for 7 years, but now I feel like maybe there's a better relationship out there for me. I think other people might be happier than I am. Can you help me understand if getting a divorce is a good idea? I want to find out if the grass is really greener on the other side. Sincerely, Greener Pastures Quest.
Oh,
Mm,
wow.
oh,
Oh, wow.
wow.
No, divorce is not a good idea if you can avoid it.
Mhm.
And I don't think people realize, where you go, your baggage goes with you. And, you pick this person that you're with for a reason. You should understand that first before you look for somebody else, because I can't tell you how many times I've had clients that got divorced and then showed up with their new significant other that was exactly like the person that they're divorcing. So, so I tell this person, think about this for a little bit and maybe do some personal work and find out what you're looking for and why you're looking for it. What do you think, Natalie?
This is always a big red flag in couples counseling because I'm
Mm-hmm.
a believer in it. The grass is not greener on the other side, and we should it. And you know what? It could be, but we should water our own first. So if
Mm.
are we watering our own grass? Are we putting in the time and effort, like we were talking about before, the work, the sacrifice, doing our own individual work? And the reality is blending a family or dating another woman or man or what, date your wife, date her, take her, be just try that first. Because blending like I said, blending families or getting out there and getting on dating sites and all is going to take a lot of work too. And so
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean you won't find a person that maybe is better suited for you. I'm not saying that to be in a relationship where you're that unhappy, but to your Lenore, what you're saying about divorce statistics, and I'm sure you know them way better than I do. However, I looked this up last night just to make sure I was accurate. So the United 40% is the US number, right? 60% of second marriages and 73% of third marriages.
Mm.
Oh, the grass is not greener, according to these statistics,
Yeah.
right? So
Exactly. Exactly. Because you keep making the same mistakes, really. You just don't realize it, I think.
well, and I think to the previous question, we're looking at the other person. I think Pam, you were saying, I'm looking at you to make me happy, right? And so if
Fake.
doing that repeatedly in our relationships, we're too codependent on that other person, and like we need to be either happy first, or we need to realize what we're bringing to the relationship.
Yeah. I'll tell on myself. Um, I've been married twice. I think it's no secret because I talk very openly about the things I did well and the things I did not do well. And it turns out that I did kind of marry the same person twice. They just look different, and they lived in different regions of the country. But when I think really carefully about it, I realized something that what I was bringing to the table was someone who didn't feel she was good enough to advocate for herself, to stand up for herself, to articulate what she wanted. I was more the one who would acquiesce. And so naturally, I would attract partners who really enjoyed the submissive woman, and until I got into my right mind and said, no more. But you're absolutely right. So, two marriages that didn't work, the same person showed up, me, until I really started understanding what I was doing and what I was bringing to the table that wasn't honoring myself. So, does that mean my third marriage might not be the statistics?
Yeah,
Maybe third time's the charm.
because you are you are showing up as what we call your authentic self, right? You've done the work, and so that you're going to attract a person that is true to you, right?
Mm,
And when we don't do that work, when our ego is kind of driving, or we don't want to be vulnerable, and our insecurities are kind of taking the wheel, whether it's perfectionism or being submissive and not being in our assertive space and our secure
mm,
space, we're very insecure, we're anxious, or we're avoidant. If we're not in that secure energy, we're going to keep, and opposites attract, right? So the more anxious I am, I'm gonna find an avoidant person. If I'm avoidant, I'm gonna find a person until I reach my secure, authentic space where I can say, this is what I want, this is what I need, these are my boundaries, this is, until we're there, we're just going to keep repeating.
Yeah, good stuff. Wow.
Very true.
Why do you think, do you think that couples at a certain number of years married come to this place of the grass is greener on the other side? Or do you think it differs based on the couple? Like, why do we come to this place?
I really think that if I really thought about it, I think that I think that's more of a personality trait, because some people want instant gratification. Some people don't like to do the work. Some people are constantly comparing themselves to others. And that's a big red in this question too, is like, do not compare your relationship to other people, because you have no idea what's going on in that relationship. And just because maybe, oh, look, Bob doesn't treat her that way. Well, that doesn't mean that if Bob was with you, he would treat you better. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like you coming in, it changes the whole system. It changes the whole dynamic. Right. So yeah, I don't think it's only about, I don't think it's like year 7, man, although there is statistics about the 7-year itch and all of that stuff. I think it's more of a personality trait, or maybe something, a learned behavior, something we grew up hearing, like, oh, I should have married my high school sweetheart instead of your dad. Do you know what I mean? Like, if that's in the energy, family home, it's kind of like this thing that kids are listening to, and then they grow up with that in their, as a frame of reference.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Lenore, when you're doing your mediation, do you ever say anything related to, this is the statistic? Do you ever point that out in the mediation process to help prepare people, just in case they think I'm getting rid of her so I can have someone else, not understanding that they might be just repeating the same old behavior?
Because the people that show up for mediation are very conscious about the choice that they're making, and they're pained by the choice, and they're not looking for a way out. They're looking for a peaceful transition. And generally when they come to mediation, especially if there's children involved, they intend to be involved in one another's life, and they acknowledge that maybe they're not good partners in marriage, but their goal is still to be good partners in parenting. I might have said things like that to somebody coming to me with their new girlfriend or boyfriend with a divorce. I think I've said to clients, that as we're going through a divorce and they're like, oh, I'm going out, I'm meeting this person, I often will say, take it slow, breathe. This is a process, and you really need to give yourself a couple years to get through this. It's like a divorce. You have to give yourself a chance to process this before you make any other big decisions. So that's what I would suggest, and the other thing is too, I think sometimes people marry the package instead of the person. And when they unwrap the package, they find this person that isn't who they thought they'd be. So I think that comes from doing a lot of personal work. I mean, and it is, like Natalie says, it's a lot of work. I mean, I'd say to my husband all the time, you're lucky I love you, because I won't do this yet. It's a lot of work.
Right.
Yeah.
And one other thing I'd like to point out, it seems like Natalie, once someone decides, okay, the grass is greener on the other side, before they actually cross over, it seems like they should have, before the grass is greener on the other side, therapy with you, right? That one individual might want to come and talk through, I want to move on to something else. Okay, let's make sure you're ready. I would think before I do it again, I think I want to come and talk to or a Natalie to make sure I'm ready and the blind spots that were once there aren't so there.
I
Yeah,
think
and
that's a good idea.
I find that I only work with couples. However,
Huh.
some couples that decide to separate, sometimes I take one of them on after, whether
Mm,
they go through mediation or whatever, because I know their story, because I know what they were like in their relationship, and they really do want to not continue these patterns. They knew that it wasn't right for that relationship, but they couldn't really, it was too far gone at that point, and I respect that. And so we work on not carrying it into the next one, so that
mhm.
they can truly be happy and attract the person that is right for them. It's just really challenging, and I'm very upfront with clients right from the beginning. If one of you has one foot out the door, what is our goal here? Where, how can I help? And I don't say, so please leave because you have one foot out the door, but we have to be very mindful of what that looks like as far as commitment. I'm hoping for 100% commitment to the process, not to the marriage, to the process. And so
Mhm.
if you have one foot out, how committed will you be to this process? It's concerning sometimes. And it kind of leaves, so let's say I'm in divorce counseling with my husband, or I'm in marriage counseling with my husband, and I'm sitting there saying, I have one foot out, but I'm going to try this. It's our last ditch effort, and I'm going to try. I'm going to try. Well, he's probably sitting there thinking, like, oh, okay, well, what does that mean? Should I be vulnerable with you? Should I trust you? Do I feel safe in this
Mhm.
relationship? If you're comparing us to others, if you have one foot out, like, I don't trust, right? So if there's not a sense of safety, which we can build and hopefully work on in the counseling, but that's what I mean as far as committing to the process. The process can look like all different ways, but
I see. So you're not aiming for the specific outcome of the marriage staying together. You're saying how you go through this matters more than the outcome, whether you stay or you go. Okay, gotcha.
absolutely. I'm team relationship and team marriage. If that's, I see myself as the counselor for the relationship. It's its own separate entity, and I am the spokesperson for it, right?
Mhm.
And I take their individual needs into consideration, but I'm always in the back of my head. I'm almost like a co-parenting counselor, right? I always
Mm.
keep, I do that. I keep the child as the center, right? I don't really care what mom or dad is bickering about going back and forth. It's not that I don't care, but the
Yeah.
child has to be right. So the same thing when they come to me for counseling, for marriage counseling, I keep the marriage as the center. I always think, okay, what does the marriage need here? Not what does Natalie need,
Mhm.
as a client, what does the marriage need? And that might look completely different than what an individual needs. And I say that very often to clients. They ask me, should I go to individual counseling while we're doing marital counseling? I'm like, well, your individual counselor might tell you to leave your husband,
Mm.
but I'm trying to keep your marriage together. So maybe we could, I'm not telling you to, but if that individual therapist isn't getting feedback from the other partner and they're only hearing it from you, sometimes it can go against some of the things that are happening in the marriage process.
Attorney Lenore, that sounds so much like what you do on the other side of the coin. Like your focus
Yes.
when they have children is on the children and preserving their lives and their sanity and their development as you help couples navigate the divorce process, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely. That's why I believe in so much what Natalie does. And even in the mediation process with the couples, trying to advocate for them to do this in a respectful way for the relationship as
For the
opposed to
relationship.
what each wants to get out of
Mhm.
this, the
Mhm.
settlement. Like,
Mhm.
let's look at how we can share this as a whole, not, I'm going to take the biggest half and leave.
Yeah, that's really good stuff. I really appreciate that perspective. I'm learning so much myself here.
Mhm.